Shabbat Shalom, how you doing? It's Aliyah bin Yaakov. I'm back once again. I'm about to do something a little different right here. Like I say, I usually go into the Torah. Excuse me. I usually go into the Torah and I use the Hebrew to prove a lot of points and the facts that I make. And but what I'm going to do right now is because there's something that I haven't been able to do. Is there's a book that's available. It's in what we call apocrypha book. It's actually called Sefer HaYashar. And in the Hebrew, that translates as the book of the uprights, the book of the right ones. Okay, and the right ones or the upright is actually a book that describes the lives of what we call patriarchs. Some of you may have heard of the book of Jasher. If you haven't, if you're watching this video right now, I suggest that you look it up on the internet, put it in a side window or something so you can refer to it, because I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between the book of Jasher and the book of Genesis. Now, the point that I'm finna prove today is that, a lot of people forget that Father Abraham was a dark man. And now, like I say, I'm not here just to prove a racial point. But what I'm here to talk about is that the first great civilization that was ever mentioned in the Bible has actually been tried to be cut out in Genesis. So just like in a lot of these other videos, how we've been trying to prove how the New Testament is false, what I'm about to prove to you is how certain things have been mixed up even in the book of Bereshit. Okay, they haven't been taken out or they haven't been misapplied, but it's been more of the same effect of how they put all certain prophets together at the end of the book because they're trying to, relate it to Jesus Christ. So therefore, you get confused and you don't know which prophets actually came at what point in time. So it's hard for you to determine what had already been fulfilled. Now, they did something like that in Genesis. So what I'm about to do, I'm about to show you how Ham, okay, the father of the African nations, Abraham and Nimrod and Egypt and Ethiopia and all of these people were connected to Mesopotamia, is in order to understand who the Chaldeans are. Okay, now, and we're going to realize to ourselves also what is a Hebrew, because see, us, we say that we're Hebrew, we say that we are from the Evarim because we're from the seed of Ever, which means the people of the east, from the ancient Mesopotamia. But we got to prove to the people, what were the ancient Mesopotamians? Were they necessarily Shemitic people? All right, in order for us to say they were Hebrews, because we have a lot of people who are saying that they're Jews, and people who say that they come from these lineages, they probably do. Like a lot of the people who are in the Middle East today, we got to understand that they're not Hebrews though, but they may be Yehuda, they may be Yesharel, but they're not Hebrew, and we're going to understand it. And I'm going to show you how I believe that they took a lot of, well, they didn't take out. The reason that they don't publish the book of Jasher as much into Christianity is because of the slavery that happened to our people. So it's already that they try to flood it into your mind that the Egyptians were white people with the movies that they make. But the book itself, Genesis itself, does describe these things, but the book of Jasher goes into more detail. Now, first, we're going to start in the book of Genesis in the 11th chapter. We're going to start reading in the 27th verse through the 32nd verse, and also the 12th chapter, the first verse. 11 and 23 goes like this. Now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begat Abram, Nahor, and Haran begat Lot. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity, in Ur of the Chaldees. Now, I'm going to point out something. That word Chaldees right there in the Hebrew is actually a word Kashdim. Kashdim. Okay, and it's a stem off of the root word Cush, which we know to mean blackface, or which means to be Ethiopic, is what they say. But actually, it means like Eastern and modern day Eastern and Central Africans, those who have that very dark, smooth skin tone, was Cush. Okay, and we see that we're speaking of Abraham and his brothers and his father Terah, and it says in the land of Haran, and Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity in Ur of Chaldees, the Kashdim. We're speaking of southern Mesopotamia. 29 says, and Abraham and Nahor took them wives, and the name of Abraham's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah and the father of Iscah. But Sarai was barren, she had no child. And Terah took Abram his son, and Lot the son of Haran his son's son, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, his son's Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees, or the Kasdim, to go into the land of Canaan. And they came unto Haran, and dwelt there. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. 12:1 says, Now Yahuwah says unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show you. Now, what I'm about to point out to you is how out of line that this is. Notice I'm reading from 11:27 through 32 and 12:1. But what if I was to tell you that Abram, Terah, Lot, and Haran, and all of these people were alive during the Tower of Babel? Now, if we go back prior over to 11, chapter 1, 11 verse 1, it says, And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had made brick for stone, and slime had they made for mortar. This is speaking of what we know to be the Tower of Babel, because it goes on to say in 4 and 5. I'm going to come back to that. Who is they? Who are the Chaldeans? We need to figure out who the Chaldeans was. Who was the people who were in control of this area at this point in time? Does the Bible give us the information? Yes, it does. Now, how are we going to do this? Is we're going to go back to Ham. Like I said, I'm going to connect Abraham, Nimrod, and Ham, and we're going to show you the connection. Now, we've been taught about Ham a lot of things. Okay, I know a lot of us, we've read in the dictionary where it says Ham was the progenitor of all of these other races except the Negroes. Okay, and it's a reason being because our root is from Shem. Our root would be Shemitic, but I'm going to prove to you that they were dark-skinned people from day one. We're going to go into 9 and 20. We're going to get something straight here. I'm going to show you how they've also put in a bunch of nonsense to throw off your understanding. Okay, in 9 and 20 of the book of Genesis, now we're in Genesis, it says, And Noah began to be a husbandman, and he planted a vineyard, and he drank of the wine and was drunken, and he was uncovered within his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father, and told his two brethren without. And Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it upon both their shoulders, and went backward, and covered the nakedness of their father, and their faces were backward, and they saw not their father's nakedness. And Noah awoke from his wine, and knew what his younger son had done unto him. And he said, Cursed be Canaan, and the servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. And it goes on and on. This scripture was justified to do a lot of slavery, ladies and gentlemen, because of the byword, because of the Jewish folklore that had been attached to this story. Notice that everybody said that Ham sodomized Noah when it said he seen his nakedness. Notice it said it seen his nakedness. So people say that he sodomized him because Shem and Japheth, they went in, they didn't look at their father. So automatically they're trying to call all African people perverted, for one. They're trying to call you the root of the pervertedness of the world with your father Ham. I felt like, well, it never said that until I opened up the book of Jasher. Now what I'm going to do is take you to the book of Jasher, the 7th chapter and the 23rd verse, and I want you to listen very closely. Now I'm going to start reading from Jasher, and I'm going to go back and touch on some of those scriptures I've already read to put it all more in perspective. We're going to start off with Ham. It says in 23, And Cush, the son of Ham, the son of Noah, took a wife in those days in his old age, and she bare a son, and they called his name Nimrod, saying, At that time the sons of men again began to rebel and to transgress against Elohim. Nimrod means to rebel, to rebel. And the child grew up, and his father loved him exceedingly, for he was the son of his old age. Now, if we go back over into Genesis to coincide with that, we see in 10 and 8, in Genesis 10 and 8, it says, and Cush begat Nimrod, and he began to be a mighty one in the earth. Remember that, okay? Now, we're going back to Jasher 24, 7 and 24. He says, after him saying that Nimrod grew up, and his father loved him exceedingly, for he was the son of his old age. 24, 7 and 24 of the book of Jasher says, and the garments of skin which Elohim made for Adam and his wife, when they went out of the garden, was given to Cush. Now, what is this talking about? Notice this. It says that, and the garments of skin which Elohim made for Adam and his wife, when they went out of the garden, were given unto Cush. Now we're going to wonder, how did Cush get it? But we're going to go back and confirm in the book of Genesis to understand what we're talking about. When we go into the book, chapter 3, verse 21 of the book of Genesis, it says, and unto Adam also and to his wife did Yahuwah Elohim make coats of skin and clothe them. Okay? And this is before he was to drive them out. Now, notice what it just said after that. After the death of Adam, the garments were given to Enoch and to the son of Jared, Enoch the son of Jared. And when Enoch was taken up to Elohim, he gave them unto Methuselah his son. And at the death of Methuselah, Noah took them and brought them to the ark. And they were with him until he went out of the ark. And in their going, listen to 27, and in their going out, Ham stole those garments from Noah his father, and he took them and hid them from his brothers. Now, let's read Genesis 9:22 again. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his two brethren without. Let's read Jasher 7 and 27 again. It says, and in their going out, Ham stole those garments from Noah his father, and he took them and hid them from his brothers. Is the next word in Jasher, what does it say in 28? And when Ham begat his firstborn Cush, he gave him the garments in secret, and they were with Cush many days. It doesn't say nothing about Japheth or Shem going in backwards to cover up their father in this book. Not saying that didn't happen, but we see the part of the story that wasn't told. Now, why would they want to hide the fact that Ham, when he seen Noah naked, that he took some garments that was given to him, passed down through the lineage from Adam? Why would he want to steal that? But then also we got to ask ourselves, why would they hide that? We're going to continue on in the book of Jasher in 29, 7 and 29. And Cush also concealed them from his sons and brothers. And when Cush had begotten Nimrod, he gave him those garments through his love for him. And it says, and Nimrod grew up, and when he was 20 years old, he put on those garments. So finally here we see Nimrod grows up. Cush passes it on to Nimrod now. Cush means blackface, so this is his son, Nimrod, which means the rebel. So now we know that Nimrod was a black man. He was the son of Cush. He was the son of the father of the black people. You don't think that he took out, not black people, but the dark-skinned Central Eastern African people. The silky, black, dark-skinned people. You know who they are. You know what I'm talking about, my beautiful Cushite people. I'm not going to call you ugly. I'm not going to talk down on you. You know what I'm saying? It's beautiful to be black, because I'm going to show you how Hebrews and Cushites, we stem from the same roots. He says in 29, and Cush also concealed them from his sons and brothers. And when Cush had begotten Nimrod, he gave him those garments through his love for him. And Nimrod grew up, and when he was 20 years old, he put on those garments. 30 says, and Nimrod became strong when he put on those garments. And Elohim gave him might and strength. And he was a mighty hunter in the field. And he hunted the animals, and he built altars. And he offered the animals before Yahuwah. He offered sacrifices. Nimrod offered sacrifices. He became a mighty hunter. What does it say in Genesis 10 and 9? And he was a mighty hunter. It says before Yahuwah. This word Alpene Yahuwah means in the presence of Yahuwah also. When it says before, it means in his presence. So 9 says he was a mighty hunter in the presence of Yahuwah, or before Yahuwah. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter, before Yahuwah. You can read that in 10 and 9 in Genesis. So in Jasher 7:30 it says Nimrod became strong when he put on those garments. Those garments that was taken, and that's why Noah cursed Ham. Noah was thinking he was probably going to give it to Canaan. But he didn't. He gave it to his latter son. He didn't give it to his firstborn because he was cursed. Why would Ham give it to his firstborn after he was cursed for stealing these garments? Because Noah knew that that's where the power of Yahuwah was. And he wanted to pass it on to Shem because he felt that Yahuwah, obviously he felt that Yahuwah had chose Shem to carry his name. And that's what he wanted. He wanted his son Shem to carry it. But we're going to continue on 7 and 31 in the book of Jasher now. And Nimrod strengthened himself, and he rose up from amongst his brethren, and he fought the battles of his brethren against all their enemies round about. Now, who is his brethren? Of course, we know to be the Cushim, right? He was a Cushite. His father was a Cush, and he was a Cushite. He's the grandfather of Ham. So who is his brethren? The children of Ham. The children of Cush, the children of Ham. Those would be his brethren, his family members, his cousins, his relatives. Okay, Nimrod strengthened himself. We're in 7 and 31 of Jasher. And Nimrod strengthened himself, and he rose up from amongst his brethren, and he fought the battles of his brethren against all their enemies round about. And Yahuwah delivered all the enemies of his brethren in his hands, and Elohim prospered him from time to time in his battles, and he reigned upon earth. Yahuwah gave strength to Nimrod. It said that Elohim prospered Nimrod, the son of who? Cush, the son of Nubia, Ethiopia, Eastern Africa, y'all. The son of Eastern Africa, of the father of the progenitor of the Eastern and Central Eastern African people. And the Indian people, too. Why you think they got a mountain range over there called, what is it called? A Kushan Hindu something? You know, I need to look it up. I'm sorry if I was wrong about that. And I got a picture I want to show you people real quick. Look at this picture that I picked up off the internet. It's a picture of the ancient so-called story of the Hindu people. You see this kind of brown-skinned guy with this very dark-skinned lady? I'm pointing out to you the origins of what the people of Mesopotamia will look like in these days and time. And we're pointing out where Nimrod is the son of Cush. Now remember that. Now, he fought battles for his brothers, it says in 31, against all their enemies round about. And 32 says, and Yahuwah delivered all the enemies of his brethren in his hand. All the enemies of the children of Ham, all the enemies of the children of Cush, Yahuwah delivered in the hands of Nimrod. And Elohim prospered him from time to time in his battles, and he reigned upon earth. And therefore it became current in those days, when a man ushered forth those that he had trained up for battle, he would say to them, like Elohim did to Nimrod, who was a mighty hunter in the earth, and who succeeded in the battles that prevailed against his brethren, that he delivered them from the hands of their enemies. So may Elohim strengthen us and deliver us this day. That's just like in Genesis 10 and 9, where it says he was a mighty hunter before Yahuwah. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod the mighty hunter before Yahuwah. So let every word be established by 2 or 3 witnesses. But we're going a little bit more in detail in that book of Jasher, right? Notice it said that Nimrod was protecting his people. Yahuwah chose the children of Ham first. He chose the children of Cush to be with first after the flood. Of course, these so-called Jews who calling themselves Shemitic people, some of these Shemitic people who were calling themselves Israel, calling themselves Hebrew, just because you're Shemitic don't make you Hebrew. See, they wanted to cut this out because they understood to be a Hebrew meant to be an Asiatic and Afro-Asiatic person. You would have to be a mixture between Eastern Asian, and African. That's what these people was, and I'm getting more into it. 7 and 34. After the people just prayed and said, may Elohim bless them like he did Nimrod and make them a mighty warrior. 7 and 34 of the book of Jasher says, now when Nimrod was 40 years old, at that time there was a war between his brethren. Listen to what it's about to say, y'all. When Nimrod was 40 years old, at that time there was a war between his brethren and the children of Japheth, so that they were in the power of their enemies. And 35 says, and Nimrod went forth at that time, and he assembled all the sons of Cush and their families, about 460 men, and he hired also from some of his friends and acquaintances about 80 men and he gave them their hire. And he went with them to battle. And when he was on the road, Nimrod strengthened the hearts of the people that was with him. Notice what he said. Who did he go get to fight against the children of Japheth? Oh, you know why they cut this out, huh? Come on, Akis. You know why they cut this out, because it said he went to battle with with his brethren. And then it says who his brethren was to fight against the children of Japheth. In 35, it says he gathered and assembled all the sons of Cush. All the sons of Cush. And who were the sons of Cush? Seba, Havilah, Sapta, Ra'amah, Sapteka, Sheba, and Dedan. Come on. That's who he gathered up. The people who we know as the Nubians and the Ethiopians today. The people who we know as, now they've been mixed with a lot of different people. But the ancient Cushite would be the Nubian people of Sudan and the people of Kenya. So that means Nimrod was a Kenyan. Now keep that in mind. We're going to go on to say in 36, and he said to them, do not fear, neither be alarmed, for all our enemies will be delivered into our hands, and you may do with them as you please. And all the men that were about 500, and they fought against their enemies, and they destroyed them and subdued them. And Nimrod placed standing officers over them in their respective places. They destroyed the children of Japheth. You know why they hear this. It's showing you right here there was no possible way that there was a European person in this land, because the children of Cush drove out everybody from out of the land of Mesopotamia. And if you didn't leave, you were what? Under their control. 37 says, and the men were about 500, and they fought against their enemies, and they destroyed them and subdued them. And Nimrod placed standing officers over them in their respective places, and he took some of their children as security, and they were all servants to Nimrod and to his brethren. And to Nimrod and all the people that were with him turned homeward. Homeward being where? Cush, Africa. So not only did he took as security, he took the children of Japheth, he took the children of Shem who were in this land. Everybody was under the control of the children of Cush. Here we see the first black empire right here in the Bible. The Mesopotamian area was it was the fatherhood, the motherhood of the nations that we know as Nubia. Was in Mesopotamia, ladies and gentlemen. It goes on in 40 to say, and he set over his subjects and people, princesses and judges and rulers, as is the custom amongst kings. So here we understand he's popped off this custom amongst kings to have people over them. And he dignified people. Now this is going to bring us into how Abraham is connected to this, because in the Bible, like we just showed you over here in the Bible, that on one part it's in 10 and 8 and 9, and then you can skip all the way over to I'm going to show you how you're finna skip over a whole story. They put it backwards. They took out something. 42 says, and whilst he was reigning according to his heart's desire, after having conquered all his enemies around, talking about Nimrod, he advised, no, I'm sorry, I skipped the verse, 41, and he placed Terah, the son of Nahor, the prince of his host. Who? Terah, the son of Nahor, the prince of his host. And he dignified him and elevated him above all his princes. And who are we talking? Who was Terah? So you see how Terah's name just got mentioned up, and he was put in what? In the Tower of Babel. Ain't even happened. But if you go over here into when you go over here into to Genesis, Terah's name ain't even mentioned until the end of chapter 11 and 27. Okay, but the Tower of Babel happens in the first chapter 11. Cush's name is mentioned as being a mighty warrior in 10 and 8, and you don't hear nothing else about him. It just goes into the genealogies of Ham, the rest of Ham's children, the Canaanite children, and the Shemite. They don't say nothing about Abraham. It says about Eber. It goes all the way down to the family tree of Joktan. Okay. And then it skips over into the 11 and starts talking about the Tower of Babel. But here we ain't even in the Tower of Babel yet, because while Abraham was around during the Tower of Babel, so was Nimrod still around. They not mentioning it. That's who the day was in 11 that we finna figure out. And now, see, we have Terah. So the father of Abraham, he became the prince of the host of Nimrod. He became his right-hand man, just like Joseph did in Egypt. So, of course, where you think Terah got his wife from? This was a community where Shemites were under the control of Cushites, So this developed the first civilization over there that we know is dark. The Hebrew civilization was created by a mixture of not Egyptians, but a mixture of Ethiopians, of Cushites, and a mixture of Shemitic people. And that is what a Hebrew is. And that's what it's telling us right here. So, and he placed in 741 in Jasher, and he placed Terah at the son of Nahor, the prince of his host, and he dignified him and elevated him above all his princes. 42. And whilst he was reigning according to his heart's desire, after having conquered all his enemies around, he advised with his counselors to build a city for his palace. And they did so. 43. And they found a large valley opposite to the east. And they built him a large and extensive city. And Nimrod called the name of the city that he built Shinar. For Yahuwah had vehemently shaken his enemies and destroyed them. Yahuwah was with him. So that's why he named it Shinar. Now what did it say over here in 11 once again? And 10, matter of fact, let's go in 10:10. 10:10 says, in the beginning of his kingdom, speaking of Nimrod, we're in Genesis now, Genesis 10:10. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, Erech, Akkad, Calneh, in the land of Shinar. It said that that's what his beginning was, but over here it says that they found him, after him requesting for a place to be built, they found a large valley opposite to the east, and they built him a large and extensive city, and Nimrod called the name of that city Shinar. And 44 goes on to say, and now, and I'll be back in Jasher, Jasher 7 and 44, because we just had to point that out over there. It let you know where he started his kingdom. Everything that's in the Mesopotamian area in Genesis 10:10 through 12 is just letting you know that Nimrod's, his kingdom, the son of Cush, the son of, and we know here that he just went to battle, it told us, and he pushed out the children of Japheth, and everybody who was there, the children of Shem, they were under his subject. And he assembled all the sons of Cush. Everybody from the Ethiopian area, from the Sudanian area, and all of the Cushite people who were on the Saudi Arabian peninsula, he brought them to Mesopotamia, and they built a city called Shinar. And 44 says, and Nimrod dwelt in Shinar, and he reigned securely, and he fought with his enemies, subdued them, and he prospered in all his battles, and his kingdom became very great. 7:45 in the book of Jasher says, and all nations and tongues heard of his fame, and they gathered themselves together to him, and they bowed down to the earth, and they brought him offerings, and he became their Lord and King, and they all dwelt with him in the city of Shinar, and Nimrod reigned in the earth over all the sons of Noah, and they were all under his power and counsel. And this is where it all turned around. This is where Nimrod, the son of Cush, became the first so-called Antichrist, end-time beast, the one world government. This is why it says in 11, in the book of Genesis, in 11 and 1, and the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. Okay, so it skipped out the whole part about Nimrod summoning up, calling up these people. It left Nimrod all the way out in the Genesis, because they're still gonna let you know that these were Cushite people. They didn't want you to know that the Chaldeans were an offspring of Ethiopians, and out of the Chaldeans, the offspring of the Ethiopian people, a mixture of Ethiopian and Shemitic people, came forth what we know as Hebrews. It goes on in 7 and 45. After I say they bowed down to him, 7 and 46, and all the earth was of one tongue and words of union, but Nimrod did not go in the ways of Yahuwah, and he was more wicked than all the men that were before him from the days of the flood unto those days. So here, this twisted his head up when they bowed down to him, y'all. Made him the king, made him God. But you know what's funny about this? This is a black man, the son of a Nubian, who became king of the entire world in the ancient days after the flood. And he's about to build a tower, and we're about to see what he brought into the world that is still around today. And ain't it funny how they call him Barack Obama, the next Antichrist or the next beast and leader of the New World Order, and he comes from the same stem. His father was from Kenya. His father probably comes from the root of Nimrod. I'm just saying that now, so don't take that as doctrine and run with it. But we're gonna continue on. In 47 it says, he made gods of wood and stone, and he bowed down to them. And he rebelled against Yahuwah, and taught all his subjects and the people of earth his wicked ways. And Mardan his son was more wicked than his father. And everyone that heard of the acts of Mardan the son of Nimrod would say concerning him, from the wicked goeth forth wickedness. Therefore it became a proverb in the whole earth, saying, from the wicked goeth forth wickedness. And it was current in the words of men from that time to this. And Terah, the son of Nahor, prince of Nimrod's host, was in those days very great in the sight of the king and his subjects. And the king and the princes loved him, and they elevated him very high. And Terah took a wife, and her name was Amthelo, the daughter of Conebo, the wife of Terah, conceived and bare him and a son in those days. Here we notice that over here it says straight up in Genesis 11 and 27, it didn't say nothing about no wife for Terah. It just said that now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begat Abraham, Nahor, and Haran begat Lot. It didn't say nothing about a woman named Amthelo, the daughter of Conebo. You know why? Because she was Cushite. They don't want you to know that. That Abraham was part Cush. That Abraham was part Hamitic. He was part Hamitic. The Chaldeans were Hamitic, Shemitic people. The children of Ham controlled this land. Okay? It goes on in 51, it says, and Terah was 70 years old when he begat him, and Terah called the name of his son that was born to him Abraham, because the king had raised him up in those days, and dignified him above all the princes that was with him. Okay? So we see now Terah, the father of Abraham, was in the king's court. And he was his, he was his prince of hosts. So he gave him a wife, of course. So now here we see Abraham. Father Abraham is a black man. Because Terah probably was a brown-skinned person. I'm not going to take that away from it and say that he was just completely dark black already. He was Adamic. He was Adamic. He was probably Edomic. He was of a brownish red tone. And so what I just showed to you is just that, they've hid out a lot of knowledge, and the information is there. Things that we've been lost about for so long that we forgot to, to know where it's at. It had been taken out. Now, I proved to you that a lot of 11 has been put in backwards, and they kind of just chopped it up so you couldn't understand who was in control of the world at this time. And then it's going to start after 12 is just basically going into the story of Abraham and him going into Egypt. They really cut out the whole lineage of Abraham because they don't want you to put it together to realize that Abraham comes from an Ethiopian people. You know what I'm saying? And that's why he had such a good rapport with the people of Egypt. And they're not understanding that. They're not understanding now. Now we can start to understand why Abraham has such a good rapport with Abimelech, of the Amalekites and all of these different other people, the Philistines, the children of Shechem, the Hivites. These are children of Ham, black men. And he was black just like them. It's just that he was from the East. He was a Negroid, but he was just a little bit different because he actually was mixed with a more Arabic, Middle Eastern looking people. The original Hebrews were Asian looking people too. The people that we know as Filipinos, Samoans, those are Shemitics. Those are the children of Elam and Arphaxad and all of those people. That's what they are. But the Israelite, the Hebrew, was a mixture of people that came out of Chaldea under the control of Nimrod. Because that's what Abraham was. He came out of the house of Nimrod, y'all. The house of Cush. And that's what we just proved to you. Now, we're going to go real quick to the Tower of Babel in 11. It starts off in 11, and it goes all the way down. And it says real quick, and this is in Genesis 11, starting at 1, and the whole earth was of one language and one speech, and it came to pass as they journeyed from the east, and that they found a plain in this land of Shinar, and they dwelt there, and they said one to another, go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, go to, let us build us a city and a tower whose top may reach into heaven, and let us make a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. And Yahuwah came down to see the city and the tower, which were the children of men builded. And Yahuwah said, behold, the people is on, and they have all one language, and this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Go to, let us go down, and there confound their languages, that they may not understand one another's speech. So Yahuwah scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Now therefore, is the name of it called Babel, because Yahuwah did there confound the languages of all the earth, and from thence did Yahuwah scatter them abroad upon the face of the earth. This is what happened in the days of Peleg. Okay, it was talking about Peleg in 10:25, and unto Eber were born two sons. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days was the earth divided. Okay, now it speaks about that, so we notice that the children didn't scatter yet. When they went over here to Abraham, the Tower of Babel hadn't even happened yet. So the whole scattering did not come until after the Tower of Babel. This part about Abraham and his father and his family, we're going to get into that. But we're going to go to 9 and 20 now in the book of Jasher. And it says, and King Nimrod reigned securely, and all the earth was under his control, and all the earth was of one tongue and one word and words of union, and all the princes of Nimrod and his great men took counsel together, Phut, Mizraim, Cush, and Canaan with their families, and they said to each other, what did it just say? Who took counsel? Now we see who the they is when they said, let us one another. That's why it says brick and mortar. These are temples. That's why when you go into India, you find the concept of building pyramids. In Africa, in Egypt, the concept of building pyramids. Over in the Mayan area, the people with the concept of building pyramids. That is an ancient signature, an ancient sign of Egyptian people. Is the pyramid. The bricks and the masonry of building pyramids. The brick and mortar. He says, in 21, 9 and 21 of Jasher, and all the princes of Nimrod and his great men took counsel together, Phut, Mizraim, Cush, and Canaan with their families. And they said to each other, come, let us build ourselves a city, and in it a strong tower, in its top reaching heaven, and we will make ourselves famed, so that we may reign upon the whole earth, in order that the evil of our enemies may cease from us, that we may reign mightily over them, and that we may not become scattered over the earth on account of their wars. And they all went before the king, and they told the king these words, and the king agreed with them in this affair, and he did so. And all the families assembled, consisting of about 600,000 men of the families of Ham, and they went to seek an extensive piece of ground to build a city in the tower. And they sought in the whole earth, and they found none like one valley at the east of the land of Shinar, about 2 days' walk. And they journeyed there, and they dwelt there, and they began to make bricks and burn fires to build the city, and the towers that they had imagined to complete. And the building of the tower was unto them a transgression and a sin, and they began to build it. Whilst they were building against Yahuwah, Elohim of heaven, they imagined in their hearts to war against him and to ascend into heaven. All these people and all these families divided themselves in three parts. The first said, we will ascend into heaven and fight against him. The second said, we will ascend to heaven and place our own gods there and serve them. The third part said, we will ascend to heaven and smite him with bows and spears. And Elohim knew all their works and all their evil thoughts, and he saw the city and the tower which they were building. Listen to what these people said that they was trying to go up there and do. But don't that remind you of some people in this day and time, though? The Tower of Babel? That we're going to go up there and ascend into heaven and fight against him. And then some say we're going to go to heaven and place our own Elohim there and serve them. And the third part say we're going to ascend and smite him with bows and spears. They thinking they're going to go up there with the normal warfare that we use here in the world. That's what they thinking. It goes on to say in 27, and when they were building, they built themselves a great city and a very high and strong tower. And on the court of its height, the mortar and the bricks did not reach the builders, and their ascent to it unto those who went up had completed a full year. And after that, it said it took a whole year to take a brick to the top. And after that, they reached to the builders and gave them the mortar and the bricks. Thus was it done daily. And behold, these ascended and others descended the whole day. And if a brick should fall from their hands and get broken, they would all weep over it. And if a man fell and died, none of them would look at him. And Yahuwah knew their hearts, and it came to pass, when they were building, they cast the arrows towards the heaven, and all the arrows fell upon them with blood. And when they saw them, they said to each other, surely we have slain all those that are in heaven. For this was from Yahuwah, in order to cause them to err, in order to destroy them from off the face of the ground. And they built the tower and the city, and they did this thing daily until many days and years were elapsed. And Elohim said to the 70 angels who stood foremost before him, notice what it just said, the 70 angels. Notice the wordplay here in Jasher, the 70 angels that stood before him, the Elohim. To those who were near to him, saying, come, let us descend and confuse their tongues. that one man shall not understand the language of his neighbor, and they did so unto them. And there we have the scattering of the nations. And it's going to continue on to talk about how they all did, and he scattered them. Then came the separations of the nations, which we know to be in verse 10. Ain't that crazy? So the land where they all went, where it's talking about how they were separated, a lot of these separations didn't come until after the Tower of Babel, when he confounded their languages. And that's a whole nother subject, and we're going to get into that, and we're going to show you how the book of Jasher breaks down to who went and where they came from and where they was at. So Yahuwah may bless us all. If you have anything to say about this video, any rebuttals, anything that you don't like about it, hit me up, let me know. Always, give me your opinion. Thanks for everybody who does that. I appreciate you. Shabbat shalom, and I hope you learned something.